Welcome to Fast Effect Double Speed Magic the Gathering. Here we have Jared on Miracles versus Devin on Delver, who gets the play in that turn 1 Delver, which is so key, especially in this type of matchup. Basic Island for Jared. What colors he's in. Miracles does imply at least blue-white, sometimes blue-white-red. By the time you start adding in black, people tend to start calling it Esper. Delver has flipped. Turning sideways, and Jared's going to need some type of answer, most likely Swords to Plowshares. Generally want to waste like a Terminus on a single Delver, feels pretty bad. And another Delver. Really coming out swinging here. Now Terminus would be very welcome. Ponder prior to a land drop. Daring Devin to daze it. Shuffle. Not expect Miracles to keep a one-lander. Their basic island. You get colorful to answer these Delvers. Oh, wow. Delver didn't flip. Brainstorm. Fetch land played, he will shuffle. And if this instant or sorcery only there to flip the Delver, he can then shuffle it away. No, just fetching now. And he passed the turn. Another brainstorm. Force revealed. 2-turn clock here. Dashing Ragavan. That is really, really strong. Oh, Jared. Brainstorming, not seeing a miracle. Looking at taking 8 damage here. Swords on Ragavan, who would be safe from the incoming, what we can only assume will be a Terminus. Now the question is, did he stabilize? Or will Burn be able to finish this match? And no, Jared's scooping it up, not able to stop that Force-of-Will. As Devin picks up game number 1. This is a very difficult matchup for Miracles. Blue-Red Delver, really a difficult matchup for everything. You have to play with a tremendous amount of precision against Delver. They punish inaccuracies at every turn with cards like Daze and Wasteland. You really have to be mindful of your mana, of your tempo, your card advantage. I mean, every aspect of the matchup is a potential weakness for Blue-Red Delver to exploit. And as we just saw there, Ragavan now a new addition, and he is just so interesting to me. The fact that you can dash him and have him come back and not be susceptible to board sweepers to the same degree. I mean, you're game 2. Jared will have the play. Calling. Expressive Iteration. A very, very potent new magic card. You're basically paying 2 mana to draw the best 2 out of 3 cards. Doesn't always work out that way, but very often you're hitting your land drop to exile, adding a card to your hand, and clearing an additional card. So, I mean, more often than not, it's actually better than a draw 2 for 2, which is an effect that's been good enough to see play vintage in the form of Knight's Whisper, where you're willing to pay 2 life to get that ability. Now, goodness, you're playing a blue card that can be exiled to force a will if need be. But really just makes Delver that much more resilient, that much more capable of recovering, also more capable of holding on to a lead, as you can just get a literal card advantage, not just card quality. And here's another card that gives actual card advantage. We've got Ragavan, and if this is left unchecked, it will completely dominate the game. This could be the first time we get to see this. Jared pondering, and if he doesn't have a swords for this, just getting a treasure and a cantrip out of this is so devastating. Treasure always happens. He is not capable of stealing lands from an opponent mercifully. My goodness, that would just be utterly ridiculous. It's already ridiculous. Oh, and he's taking a hit, and it's a Jace the Mind Sculptor. Mercifully can't be cast. Now, I'm not really sure why we saw a Ponder pre-combat. You know, if a Narset was available, I would have been very, very happy to use the treasure along with the 2 blue to cast a Narset, for example. There are all sorts of possibilities. We have a Daze. Oh, wow. I strongly disagree with that line. We had a single Daze thrown at a Terminus. Now a Ponder gets Pyroblasted. I do not like that use of Daze at all. Just to make them pay 1, I'm not on board. Murktide Regent. Now able to be cast. I believe that's what that Daze was about. Monastery Mentor, a powerful threat on his own. 6 damage comes in the air. What do we have here? Just 3 land. Being, I can't really justify the line dazing that. You have the extra land in play. You can make an additional land drop. You're still able to cast the Regent. You can delve or pay mana. Doesn't have to just cost 2 blue. And now we've got a Terminus hitting his own Monastery Mentor as he has to clear the giant dragon. Good read from Jared, not wanting to take another hit. Oh, actually, he would have just been dead, it looks like. Or is he at 9? I think he's at 9. I believe the way that's set up, he should be at 9, meaning the lightning bolt would have killed him. We're going to go with that. Would make the most sense. Life totals are facing each player. Would have taken a hit to the teeth and then getting the final few damage in with a infamous burn spell, and now lightning bolts piling up in Devin's hand. Not really capable, profitably taking care of Teferi. It's going to be a 2-for-1. Either that or essentially lose all of your counter spells. They'll be totally dead cards while Teferi is on board. Ponder for Jared. Teferi is just one of the many, many new additions over the last couple of years to Magic. War of the Spark kind of started a whole new trend of incredibly powerful cards being printed. I was talking with someone about Standard, and they're a newer player, and their perception of it was, Standard is just a format constantly getting hit with bans. Of course, being a bit of a old man at this point, having played for the whole history of the game, and in my mind, it's like you don't see a ban in Standard, for the better part of a decade at a time, and been turbulent recently, but it doesn't necessarily define it for me. But I think we are in a new era where we're just constantly seeing cards printed that go up to the line and then occasionally over it. have a Dragon Rage Channeler and a Lightning Bolt. That does allow for the scrying. Or, scrying. Oh, Swords to Plowshares takes it out. Someone will let me know in the comments right after saying I'm an old man. Can't remember. Got Delirium and not Explore. There's so many different mechanics that are similar. Storm for Jared. Got a Teferi down. He's in pretty good shape, but he's only at 4 life. Gideon could definitely provide some hope here. Way to actually close things out. An Expressive Iteration, a dangerous card. Devin with enough mana that another Expressive Iteration would allow him to dig even deeper. Super Friends. Teaming up Gideon and Teferi. Damage incoming. And, oh, a Hull Breacher. That is going to do it. That's scooping motion, the appropriate response to the 3-power creature. Really, that static ability on him removes any hope that Devin had of finding a way forward. Ponder, Preordain, Shut Off. So many of those would have been needed to kind of craft a hand that could actually deal with that situation. I mean, it's not like you're going to resolve Ancestral, Snapcaster, Ancestral. I mean, you're talking about trying to take those dead land drops and convert them into something actually useful. So something along the lines of Pyroblast for that Teferi, and eventually having an answer for the Gideon, whatever that might be. Blue-Red Delver not super well equipped to handle Gideon. Dragon Rage's Surveil, if nobody's mentioned it in the comments yet. Similar to Scry, but significantly better. Way better to put cards into your graveyard than just on the bottom of the library. Almost always. Probably not intuitive at all for newer players. It probably feels like putting cards into your graveyard is a real drawback for new players. But the reality is you want Delirium, you want Threshold for some decks, and in this deck you want the ability to delve. You want as many spicy cards to delve as possible. And if you're running Ethereal Forager or the Murktide region doesn't necessarily care as much, just needs to be your sorcery. Busy day. I'm not sure what that transition will look like. Double Delver. Certainly can take huge chunks of life off if Jared doesn't find castable removal. He's got a Swords to Plowshares to stop the 1 Delver, which is fine. I mean, Delver really only realistically needs 1 threat on board and just needs to hold down the fort. Make sure that that life total continually dwindles downward on Jared's side of the board. Will eventually be fine. Flusterstorm. Flusterstorm on what? Might have been an expressive iteration, perhaps? The new setup. In-store play. So I'll work on making sure that we can actually see the graveyards. That'll make it easier to follow. But very happy with the picture quality on the right side of the screen. Left side's a little blown out. See what we can do there. Probably get 2 play mats with the same colors. That'll be big. A Murktide Regent. He is so freaking huge. Swords to Plowshares does take him out, but again, this single Delver just keeps chipping away. Jared's got at most 4 turns to live. Now it's just 3 as he fetches. Mystic Sanctuary is going to be able to regrow a Swords to Plowshares. This is bad news for Devin. This... Oh, interesting. Playing another Mystic Sanctuary. Doubling up on the swords. I don't know if I agree with that. That's interesting. Mystic Sanctuary could have been very useful later on to recur a cantrip or a counter spell. Locking yourself into having that swords. Interesting choice, especially when your opponent no longer has creatures on board. You know, a card like Young Pyromancer can make that type of decision. Look very weak, as they can potentially play a Young Pyromancer, and then it will just trade with a Ragavan, though, so looks like Jared correct there. Ragavan connecting would have been a disaster, and he may just be that important that you just always are going to want a way to prevent him from connecting. Teferi gets Pyroblasted, but Young Pyromancer does stick. Brainstorm. He's a couple of bolts, so Mentor can get cleared. Oh, wow, and a Murktide Regent. A big turn. Brainstorm is just that good. It can turn, you know, a handful of bricks into, like, literally the pure nuts. Swords, or Bolt clears. And now Ragavan is dashed out. Getting a treasure. Oh, and not opting to play the Murktide Regent. Interesting. He had the treasure. Got an Engineered Explosives. That is not going to take out a Murktide Regent, but it will prevent Ragavan from connecting. Hull Breacher. Brainstorm. In response. And now Murktide Regent after Hull Breacher resolves. Now that Hull Breacher could have just been a game ender if it was able to respond to the Brainstorm. That would have stranded that Murktide Regent back on top of Devin's library. Would have been a devastating play. Instead, Murktide Regent shows exactly why he's earned his new place in the metagame.